Welcome to Clari-T Conversations. I'm the founder and executive producer of Clari-T Media. I created this nonprofit media organization to give voice to people who have not been able to tell their stories from their perspectives. Too many of those people are my own people. And today I'm joined by a group of African American men who are working members of the International Longshore and Warehouse Union of the West Coast Port in Oakland, California. We're here to talk about yet another case of what these men have described to me as racially motivated terrorism. Now, you all have a combined total of approximately 120 years of experience as longshoremen, including you, Keith Shanklin, president of Local 34, Ricky Cox, vice president and business agent of Local 34, and John Hughes, business agent for Local 10. Thank you all for joining me today.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So here we are as African American people on the heels of the killing of Mr. George Floyd, another Black person murdered by police. His murder sparked worldwide protests, as we know, and immediate police reform and social policy reform and the re-examination of the constitutional liberties and rights of African American people everywhere. All of you were also joined recently in action by former Black Panther Angela Davis at your union rally in solidarity to pay respect to Mr. Floyd by stopping work at the port, only to have another racially motivated incident show up at your workplace. So you returned to work this week where you were confronted with a racial epithet written with a hand-drawn picture or a caricature of a hooded KKK member with the message written on the front of that drawing that said, "Trump forever." And alongside the character drawing was another written message that said, "Fuck niggers, KKK all day." You all work at the port for the company Stevedoring Services of America, also known to many of you guys as SSA. And SSA leases the Port of Oakland for import and export services. They are there on the port in charge of?
Well, they're in charge of the stevedoring. They provide the equipment for us to remove the containers on and off the vessels.
Okay, so what about the people, the other longshoremen who are there working? Who's in charge of them?
Well, it starts off with the walking bosses, and then it starts off to the superintendents give us our plans. They tell us what containers are going to come on and off the vessels.
Okay.
So the persons who are in charge is usually the walking bosses who tell the supercargo, which is the person who runs the clerks, which is my division, and then you have the longshore division who is ran by the walking bosses. We work together, so it's a collaboration of three entities to get the job done. So it's not really one person in charge. We all work together. Okay. It's just that we have plans, and the plans have to be followed. So
okay,
go ahead.
Let me back up a little bit, because there's a lot of information we've got to get clear about.
Okay.
Describe the timeline of finding that image inside a restroom. Who found it? How did that all play out? Somebody describe that for me.
It was reported to me by two of the African American workers who actually operate the equipment there at SSA, Berth 59. So when they called me, they sent me a picture of the image, so I went over there to see, because we investigate everything. So when I get in there, I walk into there, and it's in the stall on the door. So when you first go in, it's not on the walls or anything. As you close the door and turn around, the worker, one of the guys was saying whose name I'm withholding, because I don't know if you want me to say it on the air, but he found it and he saw it there and he was like, no, and he left out, and he had to really, really think about this, and he was just telling me how he couldn't get over the fact that here we are in 2000 and these things are still being done. And so then it became a grave concern, because the Klan has never to us as African Americans been,
Describe what has happened in the past, because you guys have dealt with a number of incidents similar to this. So can you describe to the audience what those other incidents have been and give us a timeline of when they occurred?
It was when Trump was going into office. And when he finally won, I was on the port. I just pulled a double shift. So I was kind of hanging out on the port at SSA. And I noticed that these mechanics jumped in the truck, and they had the Confederate flag on top of the hood, and on the side of the truck was painted in black, Trump wins, and on the other side, Trump wins, and they was driving up and down the stringer going, woo, we got our man, we got our man, up and down the stringer. Now, the time they done this was between the shifts of day going to night. So no one's on the port at that particular time. I was on the port because I was pulling a double shift, and I knew I was going to be working there again. So I just kicked back by the docks and just kind of took a nap until it was time to work again. And when I looked at it and I heard them going up and down the port, I was like, wow, really? And I just kind of just looked at it. I didn't report it, and that was a mistake of mine at that particular time. The next morning, they did it again, and people caught them. And then someone called me, and I said, hey, they did the same thing last night on the port. So then that part got reported, and that was one of the first instances on the port that I knew of. Then there was another incident. It was in around the same time, maybe a year later, around the same month, when there was on this machine. It's called a transtainer. It's like a crane that's in the yard that move containers back and forth. And on this transtainer, it said, if I could say, fuck niggers, fuck SSA, and had the hangman painted like you're playing hangman, fuck niggers, and fuck SSA. Now, I was told when I approached it, two guys came to me and said, hey, there's some derogatory remarks on there that needs to be cleaned that you might find offensive. And I said, what? So when I went and seen it, it looked like it was trying to be wiped off, but it was like in a deep marker form, and they couldn't get it off. So I called the business agent. The business agent at that particular time said, those motherfuckers are supposed to take that off. Let me make the call. I said, well, it's still here. Fuck niggers, fuck SSA. So, we stood by, and then they kind of took that transtainer out of operation and kind of took it away. So with that, me telling the business agent at that time, I felt like that was part that was reported. Now, then there was some instances when some Nooses was on the port, and that's where John can take over.
So let me ask you really quickly, Ricky, did you get any pictures of that container and all of that?
At the particular time, it was in our court report, because we went to court over this situation.
So let's not go past that court case. What happened with that case?
Well, it was 5 of us that went on that court case that stood, and we couldn't take no more at that particular time with SSA. So we took them to court, and we were not able to get the victory. To us, the jury was one thing about our people that I would like our people to do is answer your jury duty, go to jury duty, because there's no people of color, so no one felt how we felt. They felt that the company did everything in their power by emailing saying, this has to stop, this has to stop. And they just felt that was enough for the company to cover themselves over what was written. But if we had people of color on that jury, they would look like be like, no, these people are liable for these things, for these actions that keep happening on the port, because there's never an investigation. There's always just an email, but never an investigation. And that's what we tried to tell the the courts, but they didn't see it our way. They seen it the
Okay.
way of the company, and in that situation, big money won.
Okay, so let me ask you, what made you feel that SSA would be responsible for it when my earlier question asked who is managing the labor, the people on the port? And that's why I asked, because there's always someone or some entity, some level of responsibility for the labor, the individuals who are doing these things.
Okay, this
So
is how I
why
look
did
at
you
it.
guys go
This,
for SSA and not hire a private investigator, an independent investigative company or something to investigate that?
this is my take. We felt like it was on SSA's ground, so they were reliable. We gave them the information, at least to follow up or investigate, or to even have an investigation. We let them know, like, hey, you see Confederate flags coming out of a mechanic shop. Hey, you see that the mechanic shop is predominantly, if we're 85% a black port, and there's only like 5% black people working in the mechanic shop, and we're telling you that it might be the mechanics, and then you guys keep diverting the getting it off of the no, it's not the mechanics, it must be the outside truckers, when we're like, no. And then we asked them for video footage. Well, we don't have any video footage. So at that time we were reacting off emotions. This time we know how to do the investigation, how to call the police, and how to get our words out if they're not hearing it. So we weren't experienced enough on handling it. We didn't handle it how we should have in-house. And then with your union, sometimes your union don't want to go against the grain.
Right.
Sometimes, and you can't. Sometimes it's hard to get 2,500 people to feel the same way that you're feeling.
That's
so
right.
it's tough. So we tried to take it on our own, and we tried the best we can with the limited money that we have. So you having 5 guys that have a couple of $100 to $1,000 against a mega company that got $1 billion. So we were easily defeated at that time.
And so now you're left to deal with even more of the same thing. And it could be anyone at this point, creating problems for you. Let's just say, that it could be anyone. You have some ideas about who it is, but getting to the bottom of who it actually is does require like cameras and things like that. And so you're saying that the company didn't feel responsible for even installing cameras. So you guys don't.
They told us in their emails that they don't have any cameras. We're working on getting some cameras, and we'll be getting some cameras. So that's what they told the jury, that they would be working on the problem and getting cameras. It's going to take a while. The structure on how the cameras need to be. The union told us that they didn't want cameras years ago. So now we need to come forward, and we need to get these cameras. We see those emails, and the jury bought that. As soon as the case was over, they just didn't do anything. Now this new situation come up, and John was on the scene. He didn't want them to erase anything, and he asked for a police report, so that when the police came out there and asked for the cameras, they said, well, we don't have any. So now we're looking at it like, look, you guys are really liable now.
Okay, so let me ask you really quickly, Ricky. So you guys filed a report with the police, and this could possibly be a federal hate crime. Have you contacted the FBI at all?
I think John can answer it because he was the one that did the police report. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, we had them come out and file a police report. But what happened is that the officer called his lieutenant, and his lieutenant said that is not a hate crime. If anything else, it's aggravated graffiti.
Well, we all know what the police know and what they don't know. So
exactly,
you can't really always take an individual officer's or lieutenant's word. So are you guys going to file a federal complaint?
I am waiting for a response from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, simply because, and this is me, and you told me just to be straight up with you, and I'm going to be straight up with you. I can't trust the fox that they have guarding the hen house, because the Federal Bureau of Investigation, as we all know, yesterday decided that the noose, they recognize it as a noose, but because it's been hanging there, they claim, for more than a year in the garage of Bubba Watson, the NASCAR driver, it was not deemed an immediate threat. So,
But that's a different jurisdiction of the FBI.
Well, this is what I'm saying. And what I'm saying, if you have those people in charge that change the narrative all the time, I can't expect them to change it over here, because that's federal, and we kind of get duped into believing we can't go anyplace else from there. But I did tell the police officer, and I told the and let me back up, because after I found the image, SSA management came down. I informed them, and I informed that I was calling the police. And prior to the police coming, as they did with the two nooses and the racial graffiti and all the other stuff that was written there, soon as he looked at it, he said he wanted to clean it up. And I told him, oh, no, you're not cleaning this up, because this is a hate crime. And he proceeded to argue with me about why he can't clean it up. I asked him the question, are you a racist? Because every time we have these type of things that are going on here, you want to clean it up and sweep it up under the rug. He asked me, he got mad, and he said, are you a racist? I told him, don't twist it on me. I'm asking you the question, because I didn't say clean it up. You did. So I don't have to prove anything, because every time I come here, there's always an issue with race. You have these racial slurs written all over the place. So after the police came, and he deemed it not a threat or anything, I told them we are not listening to the police, because the police are only the enforcers of the law. And we'll leave that to a legal interpreter, and we'll let the district attorney determine that.
So that's your next move. You guys are going forward with the legal process of getting this recognized and the other incidents recognized. You're taking it upon yourselves to handle it legally. Is that right? You guys are moving forward with this.
Yes, I plan to.
Yes.
I believe we all plan to, because.
Have you contacted the NAACP?
That's on me.
Okay.
And I've contacted them. I think me and you had the discussion yesterday that was in.
Hold your phone down down towards your chest, Keith, so we can see you a little bit better. Okay,
Is that better?
A little bit further down. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Okay.
That's on me. That's the part that I'm playing. I'm in contact with the NAACP. I'm still waiting on their return call to address the situation. It seems that we have a ongoing situation with SSA, and we do believe that they are not they're not putting a full forth effort into eliminating the problem. The problem is escalating from one part to another part to another part to another part, and it keeps happening. There is no accountability, because the upper management say, oh, we'll take care of it, we'll move forward, we'll do this, we'll do that. But they have not did any of that. They have not moved forward with anything other than lip service.
And what about the union, the AFL-CIO? Are you guys reaching out to them at all? Because they have statements about hate crimes and workplace environment laws. And
our international is on top of it. They have issued statements on our behalf about these kind of incidents. Now, we're no longer part of the AFL-CIO. We are an independent from the AFL-CIO. We left about 7 years ago.
Okay.
But right now, we have a system that describes racial equality, and we also have a constitution that bounds us by racial equality. And we take a pledge to honor these things. Now, our international has spoken out on many occasions about racial discrimination, equality, gender bias. We have these things in place. But what SSA has SSA, Steel Service of America, has signed on to that. So if they are part of the alliance, they are part of the alliance with the provision that they will provide a safe, clean, and healthy workplace, and that includes not having to go to work and deal with something like worry about the KKK or somebody flying the Confederate flag or somebody showing nooses in the locker room. In every part of SSA, there's a big banner that says we will not deal with racial discrimination on any part. And they also have it's in every part of every birth there. You have 4 births. You have 55, 56, 57, 58, and 59. And in every room, they have the same plaque that tells that they will not deal with racial discrimination or anything that has to do with racism.
I wanted to reiterate that SSA was able to coerce a couple of our members that we asked to testify in our favor, to testify against us, to make light of the nooses that were found on the port. And those individuals testified against us. And that really hurted our case.
When you say to make light of the nooses, how could they make light of the nooses? What did they actually say?
One of the noose that we found was about 5 to 6 to 7 inches. So they had some of our members came and testified that it's not a noose, that it's a keychain. And we passed those keychains out in our training to downplay what the noose stands for, what we stand for. And it was very ununion-like of members to testify against their own union and for the company.
And you guys have since found different sizes of nooses. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Is John still with us?
Yeah, but so John, talk about these nooses and how they've been presented in different sizes, in different locations, and then I'll get back to you, Keith.
The nooses one was hung on the fence where it was, and I want to go back and kind of say that it was 6 of us. So we don't want anybody to feel left out, but it was 6 of us. And one of the nooses by one of the plaintiffs was found by his RV where he would sleep in overnight. So after he got off the ship at night, the next morning he could go right there. And so it was found right there by the trouble booth, and it was a black and gray, if I'm not mistaken. When I saw it, black and gray or some colors like that. But it was tied up. It was longer. You know, it had the 13 loops around it. It was hung on the fence, but high enough where he could see it right when he wakes up and look through the window or come out the door.
And what year was that? Was that 2017?
That was 2017, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And so he found that noose, and it was on a Saturday, and he called me, and I remember that distinctly because I was taking my son to his basketball game, and I left to go over there to see it, and I get there and I see this noose. When we get there, and this is a big size noose. This noose had to be maybe two or three, maybe feet long, but it's enough to get a man's head through it. And that noose was taken by one of the superintendents there. And that
superintendent of SSA?
SSA, I'm sorry, my bad. Yes, the superintendent of SSA. And that noose came back a totally different color in a smaller size. A totally different color in a smaller size.
What do you mean it came back? If they put it back?
When we went to court, this is what I mean. When we went to court and they had to present that noose as evidence, that noose came back smaller and it came back a different color. And as we told them that that wasn't the same noose, they persisted to change the narrative as usual. And I'm not talking about just the attorney, but because of the color of the attorney, the white folks changed the narrative. They made it seem like it was just the rope. The second one that I saw was a small that Ricky alluded to about it, talked about being a keychain. It was small, and because it was small, maybe about 2 or 3 inches, they said, that's their measurement with the naked eye, said that it was 2 or 3 inches long, so that could not harm anybody. So therefore, it's not considered a noose. But that thing had 6 or 7 loops in it, and they brought up some picture saying that these are how keychains are sold. But the keychains we went to see were not sold like that. They were merely stuffed in a package and sent there. So I don't know where they came with this, and they did that. And I do want to definitely echo the same sentiments of Ricky. We do need to answer our jury summons, because doing the voir dire of the jury.
Wait, before we go there, I want to stay on the subject of finding these nooses around the port, so that we can get all of this clear for you guys, for the audience, and for anyone out there who can possibly offer some help in getting to the bottom of this, because this is really important. Recently, there was another noose found. Is that right?
No, not recently. All of this is still in our case. These are the nooses that we found in our case.
Okay, so now, but since that case,
right,
more nooses have been found? That's my question.
There have been reported that was found at berth 37, and let me just make sure that we understand this. SSA is where it started, but it spread it to berth 37 into berth 30, which is Tracy, and 37 is Everport. Everport, there was a noose that was found there. That's
Okay.
still being.
Okay, so let me make sure I understand. When you're talking about the different berths, are you talking about the same location at the Port of Oakland?
Yes, it's at the Port of Oakland.
All at the Port of Oakland.
All at the Port of Oakland. They're just different berths, but they're all
they're different, and it's owned by different companies, but it's same longshoremen that go to these berths and work. It's just
so different jurisdictions.
Stevedoring companies.
Okay.
Different stevedoring companies. It's like the difference. Right. It's like all of them is hamburgers. One is McDonald's, one is Wendy's, and one is Burger King. But it was all burgers. That's a good way to look at it.
Yeah, that helps. Yeah. Okay, and nobody wanted to eat any of them. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Right. But
so several nooses.
Yes.
Now you've got the drawings. You've got the word. And you've got the Trump forever, related to what happened before. And it could be anybody doing it, because you've had your union members testify against you. And so it could be anybody at this point. So it sounds like nothing is going to be done by SSA. Nothing's going to be done by the other companies that are in lease contract.
Can I interject something?
Yes, please.
Okay, now TRAPAC went a step further. They did install cameras in their common areas. The only person, the other companies are being proactive. The only one that's still just sitting around waiting for the hammer to fall is SSA. SSA figured that they're the bigger one on the block, so they get a pass. They don't have to do what everybody else has to do. They figure that they since they're so huge, that no one going to be able to touch them.
So since the installation of the cameras with TRAPAC,
nothing's happened. We have had no other instances.
Okay, all right.
Everything has been over at SSA, and SSA seems to be the couple. Well, let me refrain. Let me go back. There was one instance over at 30, but it wasn't caught on camera, and this was about 3 months ago. But this was prior to Brother George Floyd losing his life.
And what was that incident? What happened?
It was another swastika.
A swastika. Where? Describe it. Was it written on something?
It was drawn on in the break room with the felt tip Sharpie.
Can I just interrupt you for a second, Keith?
Yes.
Because I answered that one too. That one was found right by the clerk's office, and the clerk called me and immediately told me that there's a swastika outside the office. I told him to take a picture, send it to me, and he took a picture and he sent it to me. But this reason why I did that, because by the time I got there, one of the superintendents had drawn over it and tried to hide it. And I told him that was a hate crime. Why are you now tampering with the evidence? And he tampered with it. And his response was, I just wanted to get rid of it. I said, that's not how you get rid of it. So prior to that, I was informed a couple of months before that the word nigger was written in the break room where they went and found it with a swastika there. Then there was a third incident. The first one was in the break room, because I'm getting that late, and that was the year before I took office. And then when I came in, we had that incident. Then it was another one while the cameras were being installed. And all they said was, we're putting cameras in there, and we'll make sure it happens. But there was no formal investigation. You asked earlier, you asked Brother Shanklin, why are we not going through our system and going through what it goes through? Because it's a failed system, just like our justice system. It is systemically put in place to make us feel hopeless and not be able to get anything done, and it's in the workplace. Now, SSA, in our case, when we took them to court about the nooses and the racial graffiti and all the things, they do act like they're the big dog on the block. Once they were found innocent, it kind of opened the door and ushered in for the other two courts, 30 and 37, for that to happen, and there is no repercussion. So since there is no repercussion legally by the court, which is systemically against us anyway, so we don't have that, we decided that we would do this interview and hold our own court, because what I am is I'm tired of my people and all the rest of the people of color. When we come in, we are now being put down, talked to derogatorily. We have to be a certain way. If we're men and women of color who become a boss there, we have to act a certain way towards our own people. That right there becomes psychological slavery, because in order for me to keep myself there, I have to act towards my own people and the other people of color who gets it a little better than us. And I'm talking about situations. I have to treat you this way. That's why we're here, because SSA has now opened the floodgates for this to happen. And every time it comes up, they want to cover up. So it's time for them. And I'm going to tell you the truth, like I told Ricky and I told Keith and I told everybody else, I'm tired of always something being swept under the rug when it comes to us. It's time for these billion-dollar corporations to pay for their wrongdoing. And it's not so much monetarily. It's about making sure, because I have a son down here. He's almost 30 years old. Will not come to work because he's scared about what's going to happen to him. And he has a son, and his girlfriend is Mexican. And he understands that no, it doesn't matter how much Mexican his mother is, they still see his son as a black dot. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how light-skinned he is, they see his son as a black dot. Because the rule of thumb is 1/10 of black blood in you, you're considered black. And this is what we have to say there every day. And then we're being punished differently from our white coworkers simply because the color of our skin and not the content of our character.
You're also being punished by being found or having the judgment against you guys who brought the case, you guys now owe money for as a result of the case. Is that true? We can keep this or not keep this, but
There's definitely a bill.
Yeah, keep it. We want you to keep it because it's a bill. All
There's a
systems
bill.
have a bill.
I mean,
and
sacrifices must be made.
the bill was
Yeah.
in order to pay the legal costs.
The legal
Right.
costs. Yeah.
So you guys.
$1 billion corporation.
Mhm.
Yeah. So we're still being
Mr.
oppressed.
Schaefer, I'm sorry, go ahead, say it.
So we're still being oppressed because all these things happen on their port. All these things that we seen was true. There were nooses. There were fuck niggers. There was fuck SSA, fuck niggers. There was hangmans. There was nooses. There were all these things. And they cannot deny that. But the bill is still on the people who wanted to fight for our rights and for our people's rights. We haven't asked anybody in our union to help us pay because we took this upon ourselves. So we're
To
big,
fight
we're big men.
for the 80
Got
for
this.
the full, you're fighting for the full 85%
Right.
that make up the 100%, which is African American longshore men and women. You're footing the bill to take up that fight.
Right. And the one thing I feel is the sad part is this is not all our members. Some members just don't want to go to work and don't want to get
Right.
involved. They just, okay. So it's people like me to speak up for them because they look at me and say, hey, I appreciate what you're doing. And this is why I vote for you for office. But it is some people, some members that works for these companies. Since they're getting 6 figures, they are financial slaves to that company. And it is hard. It's hard to convince our members to stand down when this company is paying them and their family 6 figures. We try to tell them, the money's gonna be there. It's about your character. How much do your character cost? And some of their characters only cost them 6 figures. My character is priceless. That's why I went up against a big company. And what comes to rule is coming to light. It's going to happen again. Someone is going to write because there's no cameras, and someone is going to write something on there about our people, a Hangman News or something else, and SSA is going to slip again. Since this George Floyd life was taken, what I see is an awakening. A couple of years they were asleep. I think my people here are awakening to what's going on. Now that's why John is getting hit about graffiti, or if something is derogatory about our people. I feel like our people is finally awakening to feel like, hey, we're not about to take this anymore. So that's why we're also here, because it's an awakening moment for us, and we're going to get this information back to our people. They're going to look at this and they're going to be looking out for each and every one, and we're going to find that person that's doing these things for the last 3 years on these ports.
Or persons. So Mr. Keith Shanklin, speak to the actual individual births and just how they're managed as you were describing. What would you like to tell us about that?
Well, the incident seems to be prevalent at SSA. You have TRAPAC, which is another birth, and you have 37, which is another birth. All 3 births have had incidents of derogatory practice, but SSA seems to be the one that's more prevalent because it's a repeat offender, and it's a repeat offender to the point to where it's become like casual news. When we talk about what happens at SSA, it seems to always be, what are you guys going to do? Well, here we are again. But this time, the gloves are off. We're not going to sit there and let SSA get away with it this time. We're going to the media. We're going to the NAACP, and we're going to go further into it if we have to. And the members who put their careers on the line to go against the big boy and went to court to prove that there was some racial bias at SSA are going to be on the back of this, because here we go again. SSA is doing the same thing again, and they cannot keep doing this and not make any kind of systemic change. So our goal, it was one thing for them to make a change, but we want them to make an effective change to where the people who have been affected prior to this be adjudicated and be compensated for their role in trying to let people know that these people are not going, they're not going to stop. They're going to continue to do things that we have asked them not to do, and that's to change our working conditions. Our working conditions are as follows. We want a safe, clean, and racist-free environment to work in. We should not have to go to work and feel uncomfortable about the situations that we go into every single time we go to that terminal. And it seems to be a problem at SSA. And I think if we don't change anything at the bottom, we definitely need to change some things at the top, because the top is where the problem is. They keep blowing smoke at us until they're going to do something, but ain't nothing getting done. So until you affect the change, there's nothing going to happen. So I think the change needs to happen.
So, are you guys, do you guys have a plan, a list of demands, and what kind of help do you guys need? I mean, legally, do you need help? You know, just let us all know what your plans are, what your asks are, what your demands are, and how you need help with this, if you need help with this.
Well, at this time, the situation is so fresh, is that we haven't had a chance to get together with our heads and move in a direction to what our demands are. But our main demand is that it stop. That's our main demand. And our main demand is to make SSA accountable for everything that has happened up until now. So we have to move in that direction. So as far as legal and political, we still have to get together as a unit and come together with a solution and with a list of demands. But we don't want to go a happenstance with a list of demands, and it's not going to be doable. No, we're going to go in there with the demand. They're going to have to listen to what we say, and that's the only thing that they can do. They can't continue to have business as usual, because business as usual is hurting us, and it's going to hurt them in the long run, because sooner or later the rubber's going to meet the road, and that's going to be us denying them labor going into that terminal, because we are not going to go into there where we have to be subject to what they are doing, and they are being racist, and they're not allowing the people who go in there to go to work with feeling uncomfortable. They're violating our collective bargaining agreement, and that's all to it.
So it sounds like you guys are maybe creating an emergency plan, an immediate emergency plan that's about to happen. Are you willing to stop work? Like, and when might that happen?
Well, it's not when, it's a possibility, but first thing we got to do, we have to bring this to our membership, and is we don't do things without membership approval. So we don't have that kind of power to just stop. Now we do stop when people get hurt or when people get killed on the docks. We do have it at emergency action then. But right now, we still have to bring this back to our membership and find out what they want to do. And when our membership speak, then we go forward. But until then, we're going to come up with our action plan, present it to our membership, and then we'll follow up and see which way we got to go.
And what about you, John? So what do you feel about, what should happen immediately? Should there be some emergency stop down? What are your feelings about your next steps and when?
With all due respect to what Keith is saying, I'm talked out. I can only talk to you for so many times, and you keep same thing. Ouch becomes a thing of the past. It's redundant now. So what I would like to see is a group of us again. And you asked for help in a list of demands. I would like a group of us to get together and financially foot this bill that we're going to have to, because we're going to have to go to court, because that's what SSA is betting on, because they haven't stopped the first time. But in this particular climate right now where everybody's eyes are open, I'd rather sit them back in front of a judge, and then hopefully when we get this out, people will know about this case and our people will go. Because let's be honest, the jury was made of 12 people, 9 whites, 3 Hispanics. We got the 3 Hispanic votes because afterwards we were able to talk to the jurors. But the white folks felt that they just peddling emails between them was enough. We have to beat them in court. And what we're going to have to do, all this talking is good, but it hadn't accomplished nothing then. And this is 4 years later, going on 5, it's not going to accomplish anything now. So what we need to do, because with big corporations, you have to hit them in their pocket. We have to make them pay. Whether they have to pay a penalty to the community, whether they have to pay a penalty to the union, whether they have to pay a penalty to whatever association they're in. We need to hit them in their pockets, because until they get hit in their pockets, it's not going to make a difference to them. So we can sit down and talk all we want to, but it's like raising a bunch of 3rd graders. No matter what we say, if their minds are made up, they're going to do what they do until there's some kind of punitive damage. It has to be something there. It has to be some type of damages that rocks them so hard that they are forced to change. I respect what you're saying, Keith, and I love Reverend Dr. King too, but I love Malcolm X also. So we don't have to do things. So
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some actions we're going to have to take, because they're beating us over the head with a 12-foot club, and we're coming to try to fight them with a 2-foot knife. It doesn't work out. It doesn't work out.
So
Yeah.
send your members a message, John.
Yeah.
Just speak directly to the union members after you get your water. And so speak directly to the union members about what it is you need them to do and how you need them to step up and take some action in some way. What are some of the things that you want them to know and do?
Well, what I want them to know, that the ones who are just going to work and glossing this off, this affects all of us. When they put the words nigger up there, it does not just affect us in our future, but it also goes to our past. Understand what that derogatory term means. So we have to understand they're not just saying or putting these things out there because they're cowards. They're sending us a message to threaten us. As I said earlier, the KKK ain't never showed up to nobody's house of color to have prayer meeting, bake a cake, or celebrate a birthday party. They have never shown that. So we have to understand the history of that. And what we need to do now is wake up, bond together, and everybody get on the same page and do something to shut them down, to get their attention.
Okay, Ricky, we're running out of time. Tell me what you want to say to the members as the Vice President of Local 34 about what they can do to help and get this going.
Follow your union. Do not be financial slaves. Notice when you're not wanted. Notice when you're just a number and nothing but labor. Ask for better conditions at that port, from cleaner trucks to cleaner equipment, to not to be feel like you're in a hostile work environment. Follow your union and your union leaders and work together. Do not sell yourself out for the dollar. Come together. That's it.
And what about you, Brother Shanklin? Let some members know what they need to know about how to take some action. You wanted to add something, Ricky? We have 6 minutes left.
I just want to say, an injury to one is the injury to all. Sometimes that our slogan is fallen by the wayside, but that slogan has stand for 86 years, and it needs to keep standing. So if I find a noose, or someone else found the noose, and it affects him, it affects everyone, and everyone needs to get on the same page and get together. If we find anything that is derogatory, Everybody needs to stand down. We shouldn't look at things as, oh, that news says not going to hurt nobody. If it hurts me, it should help everybody up and down the coast. We need to stick together, move as one. We move as one, we can't be beat. Once we start separating, that's when they bing, 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 bing. That's when they start picking us off. That's when we do not win. So as long as we stay together, and if you see anything that's on that port, you report it. You do not sweep it under the rug because the company is giving you so much money and if the company's been good to you. Remember, you was union before you were company. So you had to serve the union first before you flip the switch and start with the company. When you came in this industry, you had nothing. You was kissing the ground on the union's feet just to be in. But as soon as you get to a company, you act like they're the sale and nothing. You don't have to listen to your union. I'm saying this out of passion right now because that's what's going on with us. If we can get bought off, and I'm not feeling that. So an injury to one is an injury to all. We still are practicing that. Thank you.
So, Mr. John, I will ask you to make your last, maybe a minute of your closing remarks, and then I'll use the last couple of minutes to close.
Well, in closing, we have to understand this, that we're in a time that is really perilous. And these times we are facing, it is paramount that we stick together as a people. And as a union, that we stick together and that we stay on the same page. It's most important that we stay awake, and it's most important that we stand up for ourselves, because we so much have not stood up for ourselves behind the dollar. We need to do that. Never mind the first time and the second time they had an arbitration on the Nooses and told us it was not a health and safety issue because it didn't threaten anybody's lives. We know what it stands for. Let's not believe them because they changed the narrative. Don't let them dictate to us what we're seeing. We know what we're seeing, and we know what we have to do. Let's fight on. Let's fight on.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there, John, because your call is breaking up. But
Okay,
I'm going to stop you there as your call is breaking up, and I'll just say thank you to all of you for joining me in this attempt to maintain the status quo. Anonymous members of society are going to pop up and continue to pop up everywhere, proclaiming and protesting against racial equality. They don't want it. They want to intimidate you. They want to affect you mentally. It may not affect you economically or physically, but the mentality is what they're going for now. They're going for our minds and our spirits. But guess what? We are a strong people as African American people. We are resilient. We have put up with a whole lot more than those drawings and those little symbols of obvious racism. So just in my own little way of protest, I just want to say out there to anybody practicing any kind of racial discrimination and threats and intimidation, that stuff doesn't work anymore. As you can see, you can look on TV, listen to people out in public. They're not putting up with it, and they are Black, they're white, they are Asian, they are Latin people. They have all come together. Like all of those union members need to come together as well in support of these brothers, trying to stand up for all of the rest of us. I'm Alicia Mayo, again, the executive producer and founder of Clari-T Media. My stories are about human conditions and grassroots solutions. That's what's happening here. Thank you again for joining me, all of you, my guests, John, Keith, and Ricky. Thank you for joining me, and thank you to my audience for tuning in to this edition of Clari-T Conversations. See you next time.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
This edition of Clari-T Conversations is brought to you by Adobe and the International Longshore Warehouse Unions Local 10 and 34.